If you have a content agency and maybe you even have a few clients, but you just feel stuck, my goal by the end of this video is that you have a clear path forward to not be stuck anymore, and hopefully a step-by-step path to get out of it. So what I've realized from myself personally is that most people feel stuck because they set in their mind this goal. Like maybe it's that you're getting your first client, or maybe, your first $1,000 client, or your first $3,000 month, or 10K, or whatever it might be, right? And this was really me. So when I first moved to Hawaii and first really started to pursue this dream, I was going non-stop. I was just trying to figure out how to get paid, and I was willing to do whatever it took. So, I was doing sunrise and sunset like every single day. I would come home, I would edit, I would post on Instagram, I'd do all the outreach, and I would literally do everything I possibly could to try to land a client. And meanwhile, I was taking on just random wedding gigs and portrait gigs, which, I'm blessed to be able to have those opportunities, but it definitely wasn't what I wanted to do, but it's something I had to do in order to be able to just survive because I didn't want to take on a random gig. But my point in saying this is I was doing all these things just because I was tired of getting free collabs with brands, and I just wanted to finally get paid to actually do travel gigs and work with hotels and resorts and cruise lines and all these different things. And then I did, and I got my first client, and then I got my first $3,000 month, which was my original goal. But then it was like, oh, what about 5,000? And I hit 5,000, then I wanted to get 10, and then I wanted to get 20, and then it just keeps going up, right? So I did all those things, but I think that something that was super detrimental to me throughout that entire process is that once I would hit a goal, I would never recalibrate myself to be able to hit the next goal. When I hit my first $3,000 a month, in my mind, I had built that up as like, if I hit 3K a month, that means like I'm a real professional, right? Because that means that I don't have to have any other jobs and I can kind of like self-sustain and support myself. So I hit that 3K a month, but I kid you not, maybe a week or two later, I saw videos of people being like, this is how I make 10K a month shooting travel videos or whatever, right? And when I saw that, I was like, well, 3K a month must not be professional and they must know something that I don't. Maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Maybe that needs to be the goal. And then the goalpost just always moved. So like once I hit a goal, then it's the next one. And I wasn't happy with where I was. And when this really starts to suck is when you hit your initial goal. Like for me, it was 3,000, right? And then I set a new goal. So I'm like, well, I hit 3,000, so I ought to be able to hit 10 like next month or in 2 months, right? But then you aim at 10, you don't really change your character or change your actions. So you don't hit 10, not just 1 month, but like 3 or 5 or 6 months in a row. And it really starts to weigh on you because you start thinking like, well, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Maybe I'm not a real professional. Maybe my content does suck because brands keep turning me down or ghosting me or doing all these things, right? And you start to really spiral down to a point where you're like, I don't even know if I want to continue doing this. But one of the biggest breakthroughs for me personally was that when I realized that I was putting my self-worth into the numbers and into the monetary amounts, and instead realized that maybe those are things that I can't control necessarily because, income fluctuates, all these different things. Maybe there's different seasons, all this stuff. But what I can control is the amount of inputs I do in order to create that output or create that goal, right? So like if I just do the things every single day that I need to do in order to be able to hit that goal, then it'll be inevitable and just like unreasonable for me to not hit that goal. So what I did is I really just found like the 2, 3, 4 things that I needed to do that were creating the best results for me. And I just doubled down on that. And I did some quick math to figure out how much of this stuff do I actually need to do to realistically hit the goal of 10,000 a month. And it turns out that I had to do a whole lot more of those things and a whole lot better quality of those things in order to hit 10K a month than I did just to hit 3K a month. But in my mind, I was like, well, if I hit this goal, then I should be able to just continue doing the same thing to hit the next one. But unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. So to drive this point home, let me just give you an example. So let's say that I want to hit 10,000 a month and my average ticket price for, the photo services I'm selling is somewhere around 2,500 a month, right? So that means that I have to sell 4 clients. So if I send 500 outreach messages, I think it's pretty reasonable that I could get at least 40 or 50 of those people to get on a call. And I think that's pretty reasonable that I could close at least 3 or 4 of them, right? Which would probably get me to that 10,000 goal. And if I can't close 3 or 4 out of those 500 outreach messages, then either I suck at sales and I need to, level up my sales skills because I'm obviously missing something there, or maybe there's another piece of the process that's broken. Like maybe, if I'm not getting many responses, maybe it's my outreach message needs some tweaking, or maybe, if people are responding but they're not getting on calls or they're ghosting on the calls, then maybe it's something in the middle tier or, the proof factor. Or if I'm getting people on calls but they're not closing, then maybe it's again that I don't know how to do the framework the right way to be able to actually walk people through a sales cycle. So you start to break down like those are 3 main things that you start to break down and like, okay, so if I just do more of this thing or I do this thing better and I optimize it, then chances are eventually in the next few months, it'll be inevitable that I'll hit 10,000 $10,000 a month, right? And what you start to realize as you go down this creator journey is that it's much less about the content you create or about the fancy outreach scripts or tactics or your chat GPT prompt or like all this stuff, right? Like all this stuff is just kind of like smoke and mirrors. It doesn't really matter. What actually matters is, are you doing those 2, 3, 4 things that actually drive results for the business, even when no one's watching it, and especially when you don't want to. So I think something that's weird for a lot of people that get into the freelance career is that, you know, maybe they have a side job or they have a day job. A lot of people I work with, when they start with me, they have like, you know, some other kind of gig that they work with where they have a boss, right? And when you have a boss, the boss gives you a task. He gives you a deadline. He tells you exactly what he wants when he wants it. And if you don't do it, then there's like some kind of consequence, or you get fired or you get reprimanded. But the weird part about freelancing is that you are essentially your own boss. Or, I mean, it can be argued that the client's your boss, right? But in a lot of ways, you're your own boss. So if you aren't keeping on yourself to do the things that you need to do, then are you really your own boss, or are you just kind of chilling? So what you do when no one's looking and when no one's forcing you to do it, even when you don't want to, that's just called character. So in other words, in order to change your external circumstances of income number, you really have to change the internal circumstances of who you are as a person and your character, right? You really have to work on that. So I'll give you another example. When I first hit my first $10,000 a month, again, I'd been working at this for probably 2 years at this point, and that was a huge goal of mine, and I was stoked, right? So I hit it, and then I went down a little bit one month, which was kind of depressing for me, but then I got it back up and then have been up above it ever since. But I went through this lull period where I was like, well, I live in Hawaii. I'm making a really solid income by any standard. I'm probably making more than the average freelancer, which is great. I can basically do whatever I want to do. And I started to feel complacent, and not only complacent, but also kind of just like apathetic in terms of like, why am I even doing this? And the reason I felt this is because good is the enemy of great. And don't get me wrong, like I feel incredibly blessed that I'm able to even get anywhere close to that, because I know that was a goal of mine for a long time, and it's probably a goal of yours. I know for a lot of creators, that's a huge goal of theirs, and it's an amazing goal, and it's an incredibly attainable goal. But what you realize is that once you hit it, if you don't have something bigger pulling you forward, you start to lose purpose in why you're even doing the thing to begin with. So like I said, I wasn't really motivated to go out and send messages or get more deals or make videos or even just go out and shoot for fun, because I was like, it started to feel more like a job, which I feel really bad for saying that, because honestly, it's something that most people, including myself, just aspire to do. And it's like the pinnacle of the dream. But once I started to do it, it started to become a little more monotonous. And it really takes a whole lot of intentionality and focus to recognize like the situation I'm in right now is great. Like I basically have everything that I ever dreamed of having, but it's not the end goal. And the only way that you can do that is by attaching what you do to a higher purpose. So that's really when I started doing kind of dabbling in the mentorship thing. So I did this probably about 2 years ago, and it was just something that I started on the side because I was really starting to feel like I was losing purpose in what I was doing. But all around me, I would see people like super stoked to go get a hotel deal or to go work on a travel project or something like that. I would still get excited about those things, but I was starting to lose motivation for myself. But when I saw other people be so excited with it, I was like, well, maybe I know the business side of it. I know how to close these deals, but I see so many people frustrated that they don't know how to close these high ticket client deals, and they end up getting these free collabs and getting frustrated. So I wonder if there's some way where I can kind of like transfer my knowledge to them, and that would give me a little more purpose, not only to help them, but also to level myself up, so that if I'm a better person, if I know more about the industry, if I have more experience, then I can kind of transfer it to the industry and just raise it as a whole. And what I did there in that moment of making that decision is I attached what I do to a much higher purpose. And that's really why I'm so excited to put out YouTube videos like every week, and to make Instagram videos, and to do DMs and talk with people in the DMs. Like most people don't do that. But the reason I do is because I'm so passionate about it, because I attached it to a higher purpose. And really, I didn't start seeing the fruit of it until fairly recently, in the past maybe 8 months or so. But like, even if you just look, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I posted a client interview, you can check it out, where my client Rajveer literally told me that I changed his life through the stuff that I was teaching him and working with him through, because now he's able to provide for his family in a way that he never was able to do so before. So like, shooting a hotel is cool, but if I hear somebody say that I literally changed their life and their family family's life, like that gives me so much more motivation to go out and better myself and figure out better tactics to help more people, even more than I already am. But this is a mistake that I see a lot of people make, is they start attaching their value and their self-worth to these goals that are monetary, or I need a certain amount of clients, or I need to work with this dream client or whatever. And that's an amazing goal when you're first starting, right? What I talked about, like my initial goal was 5K or 10K, right? And that really drives you forward. But after a certain threshold, or after you've worked with a certain level of client or whatever, working with the next big client or the next 10K month isn't really going to drive you forward, because it doesn't change your life all that much. So you need something more to really drive that. So for me, my mission has more recently become to make business education fun and simple for creators, because as you probably noticed, I'm sure if you're watching this video, is that first of all, there's not a whole lot of business education for creators, but second of all, the stuff that's out there is more geared towards like building a following, Instagram stuff, or it's just very technical jargon, very old school, and just like not fun to watch. So what I want to do is make my story and some of the people I work with, their story very relatable to you, so that you're able to see yourself in those stories and also figure out how to build a business for yourself. And whether you decide to work with me or not doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me more so is that you go out and you actually create a real business for yourself. And then eventually, you know, if you want more support and help, then we can work one-to-one or whatever it might be. But as a whole, I want the industry to get out of this gap of like, we're going to do work for free for the next 5 years. And then like, oh, we can't support ourselves, so I guess we have to go get a day job and give up on the dream, right? I want to get out of that whole stigma that's around this industry of the starving artist, because it doesn't need to be that way. And in fact, the content industry is one of the fastest growing industries in the entire world, and it's not going anywhere because there's more brands popping up every single day that need what you have. But you just have to be able to get in front of them and pitch them something that they need. And that's really why I do what I do. So you really have to figure out what that purpose is for yourself and then attach that to the goal. And again, if your goal is just monetary at the moment and that's driving you, then that's great. And if that's really driving you and getting you out of bed, that's amazing, right? But in most cases, just income alone is not a big enough reason. You got to figure out what that reason is. And then once you know what the number is and know what the reason is, then you just find those 2, 3, 4 things for yourself that really move the needle, right? But in order to do that, you know, being somebody who makes $3,000 a month versus somebody who makes $10,000 a month, maybe you have the same content creation skills, the same creative skills, but the person that's making 10 grand a month obviously is doing something different in terms of their character, because they've overcome certain levels that somebody who's at 3,000 hasn't done yet. They've overcome the mindset issues of like, oh, I don't want to send messages because I don't want to get rejected, or I don't want to get on sales calls because I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't want to put myself out there, or I'll take discounts because I just want to get the job. Like they've gotten over that mindset issue at the 10K a month. But say you're at 10K, you're trying to get to 20, right? Or 50 or whatever. There's a different set of challenges that you have to overcome. And those things are typically something around team, right? Because up until that point, you've probably just worked with yourself. Maybe you've hired people every once in a while, but at this point you have to start hiring editors, hiring a sales team, hiring other people to really help you build your business, which requires you to release control, right? Another thing you might need is some systems to really start scaling up so you don't have to be in the trenches all the time. But these are things that are skill sets that you have to build, and you have to be reading the right books, in the right courses, have the right mentors, be in the right community of the types of people that are moving the direction you want to move, so that you can actually be able to make those moves. Because if you're just around people who have the mindset of like the 0 to 3,000 a month, but you're already at 10 and you're trying to scale, that's not going to work, because they have a different set of challenges than you do. So you have to be able to identify what those things are. And really, it's a lot more about your own personal development than it is about any kind of tactics. Tactics are easy, but the personal development part is the part that really takes a lot of work on your end. But I will tell you, once you understand what that thing is that's driving you forward, you'll be able to go full force into whatever it is that you want to accomplish, because that's the thing that's going to get you out of bed when everyone's sleeping in. That's the thing that's going to keep you continuing to send messages when you keep getting rejected. That's the thing that's going to make you want to seek out the types of people that can help you, even though everyone else around you is telling you that it's stupid for you to follow your dreams, right? That is the thing that you need to find, and it makes everything else easier. It makes all the work, all the inputs, those 2 to 4 things that you have to do every single day to make the dream a reality. It makes all those things just so much easier to do because you have a reason that's driving you. And when you do those things, those 2 to 4 things, and you do them day after day, and you get better every single day at them, and you optimize it, then it's inevitable for you eventually to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. And that's ultimately how you become unstuck. Now, if you want more tactical steps in terms of what to actually tangibly do to grow from 0 to over 15,000 a month with your content agency, you can check out this video here. I break down all the steps step by step, so you can literally just follow that. Hopefully you like this video. It's a little bit different than what I usually do, but if you did, comment below. Let me know what else you're struggling with, what else you want me to make a video on. Totally down to make whatever you guys want, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.